right, we are live. Welcome to it. What do we got going on here? I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. Welcome to it. Kind of a different stream tonight. I haven't done this for a while, doing a composition stream. Going to be working on my 66th album, which is called Schizonoid Paraphrenic, which was named by my awesome daughter. She suggested that title as a song, and I'm like, that one's good enough to use for an album. And I'm just kind of looking over what I've got here. Need to find the correct displays to display and all that kind of stuff. So that's my notation software there. Let me see if I can throw a camera up on this. I should have, oh, you know what? This one, no, that won't work. Like I said, it's been a while since I have done a composition stream, so yeah, I am not properly set up for it. Shouldn't be too tough to get this going. Just need to set a video capture device. Boom. And we're using, should be this one. Nope, that's not it. Well, let's not use that. Okay. Try this again. Get a video capture device and try that. Boom. And then let's smallerize this. Something like that. Should get a reasonable view of our stuff there, and plus my shiny bald head. What more could a girl ask for? Hey, Obscure Mysticism Cults, welcome to it. I don't know if you've ever seen one of my composition streams. I hope you enjoy it. As I said, we are working on my 66th album here, Schizonoid Paraphrenic. And one of the main things I do, I haven't been in this particular file for probably 3 or 4 weeks. And so one of my main things is I just kind of go through here and I look at, okay, where have I actually composed? In smaller eyes and in bigger eyes should be official terms for those things, indeed. And welcome, Xena Queen. Great to see you. So I'm getting this set up so that I just kind of see the whole thing. And this area down on the bottom here, my mouse should be captured on this. This just shows me where I have already composed. Basically, if there's a darker area than I have composed there on that particular instrument. And Space Pirate Marketing, that's Therese. Welcome. Great to have you here as well. Thanks for stopping in. So I feel like, okay, I got to figure out what I'm looking at here. Let's get the whole album in view. Put me up here for a moment so we can see this whole thing. And so yeah, this looks like it has 11 songs on it. It looks like I've written everything I need to do for the last song, which is called Destroy It. Destroy It All. And this one's going to have your standard rock instruments, bass, drums, guitar, and then it's got, in this case, this area here is a string section. Oh, it's going to take a moment for the sounds to load up. And then I've also got some synths in here. And one thing I find, I actually contacted a couple of my students specifically for this stream, Scott and Michael. I don't know if you guys happen to make it in out there. There are 2 students who are currently working on learning how to compose with counterpoint. And counterpoint kind of stands aside from our standard 4-part writing, which is, 4-part writing is kind of what we think of as classical music. That's a very, very basic explanation. But we hear that kind of thing in film scores all the time. We hear it in, like classical music. It's very strong. And the main difference between our standard, what might be thought of as homophonic 4-part writing and more polyphonic counterpoint writing is that in counterpoint, you want each individual line to stand alone. as its own usable melody. And so what I kind of tend to do is on my organs, which are empty up here, but I did write some organ stuff on the first song on this. On my organs and on my synths, I tend to go more toward the contrapuntal side of things. And with my string sections and my brasses and winds where I use them, then I tend to go a little more toward the 4-part writing. And you know, if I were to turn this in to a college professor, grade my 4-part writing, there would probably be a lot of places where I wouldn't get the best grade. But a lot of that is because the way I'm writing this is I'm not intending this to be a standalone, nice sounding piece of music. I'm intending this to back up a rock ensemble. So there, you know, there's really nothing terribly exciting going on as far as a string quartet, you know. But if we listen to this with the full rock ensemble, now of course these are all simulated instruments, so this is not the best sounding stuff. It kind of starts to work there. So that's really what I'm going for there. This is really more of a supporting concept, a supporting, I don't want to say instrument, but a lot of times really even though the string section is made up of course, multiple instruments, we can often think about it as being almost like an entity unto itself. You know, you get your string section, your brass section, your wind section, and those do work as an entity, though they are made up of groups of smaller elements and instruments. And you know, like I said, then this is going to tend to be a little more contrapuntal. I'm not sure how loud these will actually be. It's kind of the type of thing that I do. Looks like Teresa's also watching from YouTube. Thank you for coming in. And the organ here, and this is kind of an interesting thing for me. When I do this contrapuntal writing, counterpoint can be done in a variety of voices. And excuse me. A lot of times when I'm writing contrapuntally to back up a rock ensemble, I will go a little less complex. And so a lot of times, like what we saw just a moment ago on those synths, was only 2 voices in the counterpoint. Where this, it looks like I started out with a 4-voice counterpoint. I love this organ sound. So yeah, that's not a bad sounding little piece there. Looks like it kind of comes in and out. And so it looks like, you know, I've got some 4-part counterpoint. Looks like, and then we go to a 2-part, which is a very, very basic thing here, where I'm only really just almost using it just kind of as a bass instrument. So nothing crazy going on there. And then it looks like I get into more of a 3-part counterpoint here, which so it's kind of cool. I haven't, like I said, I haven't looked at this stuff for a while, so. And as near as I can tell, I've written all of the rock instruments, so I'm really kind of more concerned with the orchestration tonight, the backing pad elements, which are largely strings, synths, organ. And This particular one, I don't recall all of what I did through here, but I do know at the end, and this is, I think, only the second time that I've used this, is I used what's known as a Picardy Third. And a Picardy Third is when we are in a minor key, which is the majority of what I write in, is in a minor key. And so normally, if we're in, say, A minor, so there we used an A minor chord, then we come down to a G major, and then we come down to an F major. And we could go down one more to E minor. So those chords are all in key. And you get a nice sounding resolution when we get back to that A minor at the end. That's a very good place to resolve your key. Your Picardy Third concept is when you replace that minor chord at the very end with a major chord. And it's not something we hear often in metal, but it's a very cool effect. And particularly, I find organs are extremely well suited to it. And so right at the end of this, looks like we're kind of in a three-part counterpoint type of thing here. There's that Picardy Third poking in there. And it's a, to me, it's particularly with a pipe organ like this, it's got that very kind of like large cathedral type of a sound. You could very much imagine a pipe organ in a huge cathedral doing exactly that. And what does this sound like with the rest of the instruments here? Yeah, I'm really digging that. That works for me. I like that a lot. So yeah, that's kind of the type of thing I'm doing here. This first song is called A Slow Descent into Madness. And I open it up. Oh, that's why I started with 4-part counterpoint, is because it starts with just the organ. And then the rock ensemble comes in up here at measure 8. And then what I was doing here is I was playing off of this dissonance concept known as a tritone, or in this case, no, what do I got this in here as? Yeah, okay, I've got this in as the augmented fourth. And that particular interval, very dissonant. So that's that first kind of line there. And yeah, so that's, kind of the feel I've got going on here. Actually, I ran 8 miles this afternoon. It was awesome. Just clear skies and out in the desert. Just, it's beautiful out there. And I was listening to my current album that I'm working on, Incomprehensible Isolation, album number 65 that I've been talking about for a year and a half now. And it is sounding a lot better. I'm getting much closer to solving the issues that are preventing me from releasing it. And I was just going to say something about... one of the things I was noticing, there are 2 songs in that don't have any orchestration along with them. None of the strings or synths or organs or other instruments to kind of pad things. And I feel like I'm going to be doing more and more of the pad type work as I move forward. So I have some entire albums that don't have any of it. I have some albums that have it all the way through. And I feel like I'm just kind of moving into an arena where there's probably going to be more of that going on. So let's block out some instruments here. And this one, I'm probably going to be pretty string heavy going through this. And this is a song that I felt I'd probably work on tonight. So let's get this up to where we can kind of get a decent visual of it. Cool. So what do we got going on here? So this, how does this open up? And then I've written a string section for this. Let's listen to these strings on their own. Okay. Listen to that together, get a feel for what's going on here. Low section here will come out a lot better once it's in the actual mix. I like that A section. That orchestration is really working for me. I feel like some of this wasn't really working all that great. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'm just curious now, kind of what's going on here. And for any students of mine that have got into composition, they'll know that when I do stuff like this, basically what I'm looking at is, how does this stuff line up in a mathematical fashion? So when we look at this, we're using an E Phrygian mode, which are no sharps, no flats. So just the notes E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then that repeats. And I start with the letter E because I consider that the kind of primary tone, the tonic, as we would call it. And so I look at each of these chords, and in a case like this, now this might be the one that's hitting me wrong. I'm curious as to what's going on here. And so I'm using the B, and naturally with this, the fifth note of that would be an F, which I've put below it. And then I've intentionally put a sharp on that to avoid the tritone that we were talking about just a moment ago from the first song. In some places you definitely want the tritone, in some places you definitely don't. It just depends on how you are using your dissonances. And in this case, I would not want this. And so what I'm noticing here is I've got the F sharp here, but here we have an F note in the cello that is an F natural. So we're gonna have this clash between this F natural and F sharp. And I bet that was what hit my ear incorrectly. And then we also have an F on the viola. And so we had the two different octaves of F clashing with another F. And then because of where the guitar is at, I think this, that I think is actually the exact same octave range as well. So we were actually having a clash of a minor second, which is mathematically the most dissonant sound that we've got. Let me back off. Very, very dissonant sound. And again, that can be put to really good effect. It depends on how you use your dissonances, because that, when it's on its own, has this horrible dissonance, but when you put it inside of a chord, this is a concept known as cushioned dissonance. And what cushioned dissonance does is it allows you to have a very dissonant sound hidden inside of a chord. This is one of my favorite chords. It's a minor add 9 chord. And it has that clashing minor ninth, but when we cushion that with all of these other consonances inside of a chord, works really well. Let me listen to that again. Yeah, that works much, much better. So now I gotta look here, because I see I've used that chord again here. And looks like someone has joined us from Nemo. Hello out there. Thanks for coming in from Nemo. I saw a picture pop up there. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I don't use Nemo very much, but if you're out there watching from anywhere, thank you very much for coming in. If you're unfamiliar with what I do, this is very different than my standard stream. This is my performance space, office type thing. You can see my guitars and nooses back here, and you can kind of see some of my lights off to the side. And more commonly, I do just standard rock shows, and the lights are going and there's smoke, and it's a lot of fun. And it's as loud or as quiet as you want it to be, because you control the volume on your own end, so it doesn't have to be rock concert volumes. Tonight, though, we're just doing some composition. I'm actually working on the composition for my 66th album. I am currently working on my 65th album, and I've been working on that one for a year and a half because I've had all kinds of just production stuff going on. And getting closer on that, but I have composed, gosh, I think like 5 other albums and change. I don't think all of it has been orchestrated, and so this will be next. But I've got several others composed. I'm working on and off on album number 68 right now as well, because number 68 is going to be in the asemic writing series, and the whole concept of asemic writings is that the entire album is just one song, and it's 52 minutes 25 seconds long. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Now, I'm kind of curious here. This actually looks like it is not composed completely, because these are all just parallels. F, 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 E, E, E. Yeah, I haven't. Okay, so this part here actually isn't composed. What I will often do is I will pull the notes off of my bass guitar and kind of get them in place to work on this. So I think that I missed this, and that's not so great. So yeah, I composed this part. Just want to make sure I've got some reasonable chords going here. What do we got? We're on a B note. So we've got a B and an A, so that'll be a 7, and down here we've got an F, so that should be an F sharp, and here we have a D, so we got B, D, F sharp, A, so that's your standard B minor 7 chord. So that, yeah, so this one's needing a little bit of work to make sure that I've got everything in place. And this is the kind of thing when you're working on composition in any fashion. You sometimes just want to kind of knock things out, but at the same time you have to be willing to say, okay, let me take my time, make sure, and particularly something like this, I want to come in here and make sure that I did this properly. And clearly, or at least I should say, it seems to me that this A section I did a little more composing on. This actually looks like it's composed, where a lot of this, the notes were just kind of put in place. So it's kind of waiting to be composed. So let's see what else we got going on here. So now we come down to an A chord, and that, A lot of times with 4-part writing, we will intentionally hold a note across where a chord, basically if you can use the same note in a chord, you often just hold it across instead of having that instrument hit that note over. I mean, there's plenty of exceptions to that, but that kind of smooths out the feel of what we got going on. So what else we got here? So we go from B to an A. So we got the A there, got the A here. So now, what we got? We've got an A here and an A. So these are all just A notes again. So that is, and that when we do something like that, I'm actually going to switch my view here. When you go from a legitimate chord into just octaves, you get this, again, we could use Zena's new favorite word, in smaller eyes. You go from a bigger sound to a smaller sound. I kind of talked about that a little bit right as I started. We're kind of talking about the differences between counterpoint and 4-part writing, where in counterpoint you want everything to be its own unique melody on it. You want it to stand alone if possible. You know, one of the greatest masters of this was Johann Sebastian Bach, who was just brilliant with this kind of thing. And I'm okay at counterpoint. I love counterpoint. But in a case like this, this is going to sound, this is something Bach would just not do. So like all of a sudden when it gets to that beat 4 there, where all of these A notes, it's like you just have lost all harmony. So even with 4-part writing, we want some independence of voices. We want it to sound more of a homogenized whole, but we do want some independence to be going on. So now we start looking at how do we handle these other notes. And so in this chord, because I've gone to an A here, I kind of have some choices for how I'm going to approach something like this. So the obvious choice would be to use an A minor chord, because that's the chord that would fit in this place, A, C, and E. And if I wanted to use an extension, the most likely would be a 7, which would be a G note. And it also depends on, what kind of extensions are going to work within your melodic lines and what you prefer. So there's a lot of this comes down to stylistic choices. And we often will try to have, particularly in the upper voices, we'll try to have smaller movements in this type of composition. So let's see what we got here. So we're looking for an A, C. Now I got an A here, and I do want to hold that one across, so I'm going to call that good. So where can we, so a C note would be here, an E note would be here. So now this works really well because you've got a nice small movement there from the F sharp to the E. Now the C, is that still in? Okay, I can put my C down there. So I've got a C and an E. And so I've got my A, C, and E happening now. And now this one, we will often accept much larger movements in the most bass instruments, because with the way that bass frequencies hit our ears, we can get away with a lot more movement there than we typically can with the higher frequencies. And so one thing I'm thinking here, well, see now, yeah, I don't know if I'd like that. So there's a few ways, this is one way we could handle it. I could take that to a G and it would be a 7. And if I do repeat a note, it will most likely be the root, but we can repeat other notes as well, or we can do a variety of extensions in this. And the reason I'm possibly reluctant to go to the G note here is just that we're moving to a G chord. And particularly in the soprano line, even though this is a violin, it's the uppermost frequencies, I don't always like going straight across like that. So from a G to another G. Let's listen to this. That's not bad. Just going like that. I'm gonna leave. The other option I have here, and this is always fun to explore around with, is I could say, okay, well, I've got an A note here, but my A note doesn't actually have to be the root of the chord. Just because I wrote that first doesn't mean that has to be that. So I can look at other chords that have an A in it. And so I could go say, for example, well, my F chord would be an FAC, which could be kind of cool. FACE if I use the 7. So I could still hold this across. I could take this to an F natural, which could be kind of cool. I could leave my C here. And then I could put this on an F, which would pop me up to that G. I'm kind of liking that. Cool feature in Sibelius is if I highlight a set of staves, it will solo those and only play what is highlighted. That's kind of cool. I'm kind of liking the chromaticism here with the F sharp to the F. And I'm just kind of thinking of what I might do, because it might be kind of cool on this to take this to an E, which would be a 6 of the G. And so my chord would kind of be built up out of a 1, 3, 5, 6. And that could be pretty kicking. And I had that little chromatic line just working its way down there, which would make my student Susan ever so happy. She loves chromaticism. So that's a possibility. And I really like 6 chords as well. And in this case, we would end up with a G, B, D, E, which would be a G major 6 chord. And of course, any time I get to any of this, I can think of, okay, well, what else has a G in it? So I could turn this into an E minor chord here in this case and say, well, that's, E, G, B, and then the E would be inherent to it. And so I definitely got some options. And so, and this, I could also just go with the E here. So if I go with the E, G, B, I don't know if I want to do that though. But I could still go with the E here. It would be weird to... So this is where, because I'm backing up a rock ensemble, we wouldn't normally repeat note number 6 as an extension. That wouldn't be kind of the 4-part harmony guidelines that we typically work to. I did kind of like the F chord here. So I think going to a G chord could work well here. But yeah, I don't think I'd want to repeat, even though I'm backing up a rock ensemble in this case, I don't think I necessarily want to repeat the 6 of the chord. And the soprano note in your part writing is you really, if you think about this as voices, that uppermost note, the soprano note, if this were a choir, that's probably the part that people are going to walk away humming. And that's that. So in this type of writing, you almost give a bit more credence to the upper voice as the primary melody, even though, again, in this case, it's not going to stand out as much as such. It's still a good way to think about it. Now, I have not completed this chord on measure 291 here. Let's work this as a G. So we got G, so let's put a B note here. And we got a decent little, from the A to the B. So we got G, B, put this one on a D note. did kind of like the E here in some ways, and I could move this, so I would lose my chromatic line, but that's not a huge deal. Move this to a G note here. I kind of like the movement down in this case. And I don't want this quick movement on the second half of this measure. I kind of want, the guitar to kind of stand alone as being the quicker movement there. The bass is backing that up. I feel like I should probably go to quarter notes on this. And then I feel like moving back up here is probably good. And so here you kind of look at, like what's the bass doing? What else is going? These are drums here, so these are not part of our harmonic content, so to speak. That's our rhythmic device. So we're kind of looking at, what do we got here? An F and a G. We've got an F and a G here. These are all going to be Fs and Gs right now. And this even more, you can really play with, what chord is this? Because this is not outlining a particular chord. And I could look at this in a variety of ways. I could say, well, this is a 1 and a 3 of G. This is a 1 and a 3 of F. I could say like this is a 1 of B, and that's its 5. There are always going to be, when you're looking at any kind of musical analysis, there is always more than one answer. Always. There are a lot of ways you can put chords together, and there are even more ways you can analyze those chords. So for example, if I wanted to on this B minor 7, I could reanalyze this using just those notes and turn it into a different chord. Oftentimes I'll go with just kind of, the simplest answer on that. But yeah, musical analysis, it can get kind of funky like that. So this is where, so part of it is if I like that upward movement here, because I feel like the guitar kind of gives us a bit of a downward movement. Just because it is doing that downward type of a thing. So let's leave the F and the G here for now. We'll see where that leads us. So, since I do have a B note starting this off, I've got the F note here. Let's move this to a B, and then I could tie that over from here. So I've got a B and an F. What do we got here? B and F, we'd kind of be looking for a D note in here, which I could also just use that D note. Now I've got that repeated. And then I could be looking at, so I've got a B, a D, and an F. And what have I got here? That's an F. So I'd be repeating the 5. So this is where in 4-part writing, we've got our basic guidelines about how we move around. And then we also have, voice leading is very important in this. So it's like, how does this voice move to this voice? And this can override this. And I would say I'm even looser on a lot of this information than, if I were, like I've done some smaller scores for some small time film previews, one film, a couple of web episodes, things like that. And so when I'm doing, more actual where it's an orchestra, then I'm more concerned about that. So I might rework this a different way. But again, this is not the type of thing I'd probably be writing for a film preview. Kind of boring on its own. Again, this is made to back up rock elements. So And I will often be looking at, what's going on in this next line. So this is actually an exact repeat of this, but played one octave higher. So that first measure, and then we repeat that on measure 4, an octave higher. And it looks like what I've done here. So this is a repeat. Okay, so I play this much is moved up an octave, and then measures 3 and 4 are not a repeat of measures of here. So I kind of do a partial repeat there. Interesting. Good to know. And what else do we got going on here? All right. So we go to a G note here. And here, this is kind of cool because this is not, like I said, these are not outlining a chord. That's just a musical line. It's just, straight down notes. That would be a 5, 4, 3, 2 of the actual notes of our scale. And so the chords here are not really in line with what the guitars and bass are actually creating. I'm working more off of the bass than off the guitars. And I feel like the guitar and the bass work just fine together. Yeah, totally. That's good. But yeah, there's a lot of decisions I can make around this, so I don't even really have to pay a lot of attention to the fact that there's a G note here. I want to give some credence to it, but I could play with it. I could do a lot of things with this. So this would be a very easy place to, the G might be the 7, which would make an A my 1, so I could put another A minor chord here. Now, what did so, okay. G, B, D, so I basically turn that into a G major chord here. Wait, am I looking at that right? No, F. B, D, F. Not G, B, so B, D, F. So that's a B minor chord, is what I should have said. And then here we've got the G. Now I could, interesting, I could just kind of keep this going with the B, D, F concept and then add a G to it. So if I were to take my F note here, make that a half note, B, D, F, if I put a G on it here. So I don't just necessarily want to go to whole notes on all of this. I kind of want there to be some distinction on this chord. B, I'm not sure if I like this idea. And I do this, my brain, it just kind of goes all over the place when I'm thinking of this stuff. And yeah, I do this a lot faster when I'm not talking my way through it. But this is really great for me to work my way through it this way and think more about what I'm actually doing. This might actually work better as an E note. So then I would have this neighbor note concept here, E to F to E, E, F, E, and then E, B, so this is an F note. So that may not work out so well. F, move that to a G, then I'd have this G note here moving in contradictory motion to that. Well, that's just so exciting. And so I've got an E and a G. If I go to the B, then I'd be getting an E minor chord here. And then I would turn that into a whole note. And then here, probably bring it down to the E to bring the root out there. Oh, that's exciting. I don't know if, so that's where sometimes, particularly in the soprano line, I don't always dig the coming right back, the neighbor note, or not even neighbor note, even if this was a different note, just, coming back to that same note doesn't always work for me. there. If I went with the G there, then we would have B. So I have a repeat of the G instead of a repeat of the E. So yeah, and that's, you know, less likely to repeat the 3, which is so the G would be the 3 of the chord. But I think in this case, I'm gonna roll with that. Oh, and I also want to point out, for anyone out there who may be into composition or any kind of work in a computer, I have probably saved this like 25 times since we've been online here. I save my work all the time. It should be, I do a thing where I turn off autosave on my programs so that I never rely on anything else to save my program. I want it to just be a part of my workflow. And that way, if I get onto a program that doesn't have autosave turned on and I didn't know it, no problem, because I'm just hitting Control S all the time. It's a very, very good habit to be in. So I'm just kind of looking back here now. So I want to make sure, because I found this was kind of messed up. I want to look at these other chords here. So we got B, D, D, and G. So G, B, D there. And that's another example of repeating the 5, which, you know, whatever. Now that's interesting, because because I'm playing a C chord here. A C, and it's 5. So that's, so GB, so this would kind of all together end up being kind of more like a G major add 11 chord kind of thing going on. Yeah, it works just fine. I like most chord extensions, generally speaking. I'm pretty open about chord possibilities. There's so much you can do with it. And even though a lot of what I'm writing here is kind of very in key, I have nothing against taking things and being completely out of key. You know, yeah, just doing wacky stuff, like, you know, putting in like a sharp 11 or something can be really cool. In this case, because my 11 is here, if I were to move that to a sharp 11, that probably would not work well. No. Totally not digging the sharp 11 in that case. But sometimes I do like them. So, what else do we got here? And we got, so this here, we're basically working, even though this starts on an F, that F is such a passing tone. E is really kind of what we're looking at here. And an F is, it's not really technically working as a passing tone, but it just, in this, I'm using the term a little there, it just passes by. It doesn't really set the tone, so to speak. You know, we're putting that little F in there. That's not doing a lot. So it looks like I do have an F here, and then we got G, and we've got a B here and an E. So E, G, B. So that, I might want the E here. So in that case, our F would be acting as a 9. But that's a minor 9. Now, I really like 9s. So that's based around a 9 quadruples. 9 chords can be awesome, but it's usually a major 9 that you're using. And well, I should say that I'm using. I think most people probably would prefer the major 9. So the minor 9 is inherent to this E minor chord that we're using. And this is a place where if I were to sharp this up to be a major 9, it would conflict very heavily with this minor 9 that's here. So here, I think I might be better off just skipping the F and just letting it pass through on the guitar. I do like that better. Absolutely. And then what do we got? So now here we got a D chord, a D5 on the guitar. And on the bass, I went to the A, so we do have a complete triad there. Triad, if anyone is not real into music theory, a triad is the basis of a chord in music. So essentially, if you take a scale and you use the first note, the third note, and the fifth note, that is how we create a triad. So in this case, if we use this scale working off of the D note, the first note is a D, the third note is an F, and the fifth note is an A. Oh, so no, I did not do a complete triad here. I used the A note. So I just have so in this case, I have an incomplete triad with a D and an A, so that's known as a power chord. I totally thought about that the wrong way. And so what did I do down here? I've got an E, I've got another E, and I've got a C, and I've got a D. So the C would be acting as a 7, the E would be acting as a 9, and I'm totally not digging that. And I don't know where my brain went on that particular thing. But I don't think I'm going to stick. I think I should modify this. I don't really care for the E to E right here, even though there's nothing wrong with that. I think maybe if I take this to an F, now we've got the 3, the third of the chord. So we do have a complete triad there. And now here I've got. I had an F there already. Okay. I'm going to change the C. The D can stay there. Maybe move this one to an A. So that's a repeat of the 5. And now if I can move this one up here somewhere, this is often a nice kind of a thing here where these 3 voices are moving downward and this voice is moving upward. That's called contradictory motion, and particularly contradictory motion in the bass can work very nicely. So move that to the root, and now, so that's a D. So now I've got a D note there, a D note there, an A, and an F. That's a pretty standard type of 4-part writing. You repeat the root, and you have the 3 and the 5. Contradictory motion, that works pretty well. Yeah, I think I like that a little better. And then what do we got right here? So it looks like I had just the exact same chord as here. And I almost wonder if here I might want to actually change it a little bit. So I still don't like the F in this case, in the string section. I can maybe move it to an A. And then that would be like a 4 or an 11. And that kind of gives us this nice little line, even though it's separated with all these rests, it gives us this nice little line moving down. That's not a bad little melody line there. And I know that's something it's been very easy for me to get kind of trapped in is, this is the same musical concept here. And so it's very easy for me just to copy paste. Oh, I'll just use the same chord. But that's a really good way to add a bit of flavor to what you've got going on. And, here too, we could also try this and say, well, what if I moved this one to the A? Move this down to the E. Now we have a line moving upward. And in this case, I think I might like the downward line a little better because then we're kind of doing that repeat of that A note. So I think I like it this way a bit better. Kind of liking that. And then here we're starting fresh because we have not done this part yet. Now here, technically, this is, other than the fact that we've moved 1 3/4 measures up an octave, this is a repeat of what we've got going on here. So I've moved that up an octave, and then I've spruced up the bass by actually taking this line and kind of putting it, so I'm basically letting the bass do a little more of what the guitar did here, fill in the bottom end. So this is going to sound a little more space to it, where this is going to be fuller sounding throughout. So what I'm thinking I could do here, so this is worth experimenting with. I could take this, put it here, and now instead of having this strong staccato thing going on, I could fill in all of these. So it's going to be technically doing the exact same chords at the same time in the same way, but now it's going to be fuller. And so this would be a half. Now this runs into another thing where I may modify this a little bit. Let's give that a listen. So that doesn't work quite as well for me. And one of the reasons is because we now have each of these, so this would be known as a block chord. And in that staccato where you have those rests in between, that can work, kind of has to be that way. Here, as I pointed out, it's not uncommon to want one voice to, go across other notes and smooth out that line. And it's even common to do that across bar lines. And I did not do that here. So like this is a block chord, but this is not, because this one has this one coming through it. So this might be a good place. I've brought this concept over, but now I might want to rearrange it a little bit. And so I might look at something like this and say, could one of these notes, well, this note now, this does cross over. Oop, no, let me get the correct one here. So I can leave that like it is. That crosses over and helps this be less blocky. And then here, because we're on a G chord, I can also hold this one across. So now, moving away from that block chord in that case, haven't actually changed the chord yet. I've changed which note is repeated, but I also don't know if I like this high note in this case. And now I've already moved this one to a G, so I don't know if I want to move that one to a G. I also don't know, so I can move that to an E. That, and then I'd move this to a B, and that actually holds over, so that violin has a nice long note there. So this is going to end up being a fairly subtle change in this case. And I actually don't know if I like the E there, because even there, I had the E in this position. Originally had an A note up there. Gee, what if I was to move? What else do we got? So that's where sometimes I'll go back and I'll change some of this as well. So I don't have to keep that. And this is something I've spoken with my students about many times. It's very easy to get emotionally attached to music that you have composed. I've just saved again for those who are. It would be interesting to have like a camera with a how many times saved counter. I'm not sure quite how I would set that up though, so I'm probably not going to do that. It's very easy to say, hey, I like these notes that I've written. I like these chords, this melody, this phrase, this idea that I've come up with. I don't feel like I should have to go back and change it. But oftentimes the going back and changing it, that's what makes your music actually much more powerful. And so, and again, with this, you know, we didn't have this, some specific chord we're playing to here. So maybe if I leave this at a G and I move this somewhere else, I didn't like the E. What if I was just to take this is an F. I could possibly just move that F across. Now I've got this nice little line going up here. Now, so the F against, what do we got here? We've got, this is a G. This is an E. E, G, B. So the F in this case would be, that would be that minor 9 again. How does this work? You know, here I don't think the minor 9's bothering me, because the E, even though I've kind of turned this into an E chord here, I don't really feel that the E is very primary in this case. It's just kind of supporting. So I feel like the minor 9's not going to be distracting. And we do have the F's in the guitar. I think that I'm kind of digging that. And this is a great example of don't be attached to what you've already written. Go back, change it. This I like better. This, yeah, nice change on this. And then what's also nice is you can see these up above here, the A section, the intro, and so I don't know how well these little teeny letters here show up for you guys, how big your screens are, but I basically have an intro, an A section, a break, and then a B section, an intro, and then, as I like to call it, the C section. Then I repeat the break back to the C section. I have a second break back to the A section, a third break back to the A section, and intro. So look at the intro comes up 3 times. And so I will be able to pretty much just copy paste this over the intro, because the intro section should be the same all 3 times. So I'm getting more done than it seems like. And I've already created the A section and repeated that in properly. Looks like the third break has already been orchestrated. And yeah, this one looks like I wanted the repeating notes. Oh, that's nice. Ooh, that's gonna sound, how does that sound with the? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool. I really like that. I'm actually gonna play that with all the other instruments. I'm gonna play the guitar on that. Oops. Oh, that's going to be really cool. I'm digging it. But anyway, so even though I've spent like, an hour working on this seemingly fairly small section, this will be repeated in other parts of our piece. And so, I'm getting more done here than it seems like. And like I said, when I'm not streaming and speaking my way through every single move that I'm making, I do get this done a lot faster. This is still, it's a lot of fun though. I enjoy so one way I think about the type of thing I'm doing right here, right now, is I tell my students all the time, one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And even if you don't have someone to teach, you can talk your way through something just as, basically talk to your imaginary friend. I don't even know if anyone is watching this stream right now. People might be watching passively off on the side. They may have shut it off and gone on to other things. I don't ever pull up a numbers of viewers counter anywhere, so I don't know how many people are viewing. So, and it doesn't matter, but you just talk to the people out there. And so working through things like this often helps me with ideas for music and how I move forward with my compositional process, all of that. So we just got done with this section. Well, let's take a look at this last chord here where we move to the D chord So one thing about when you move from like one letter to the next letter. From A to a B, from a B to a C, from an E to a D, doesn't matter which direction you go. You don't have any common notes between those two chords. If you're just using kind of standard triads. Oh, Teresa's still walking. Still walking. I hope that Teresa is still walking. Teresa's still watching. Talks her way through marketing strategies all the time. Absolutely. No, it's a great way to do things. It helps you process information. So, and thank you for still watching. And anyone out there, I'm always okay with people not, being active in chat. I've actually been on some forums and seen things where people are offended when people are viewing but not chatting. And I'm like, you need to get over yourself, honey. No. If people want to watch my stream and not chat at all, that is always okay. You are welcome just to view or just set it off on the side and watch. And it's totally fine if you're playing my stream and you walk away to make breakfast and you totally forget that I'm going. That's cool. Fine. No worries there. Anyway, so back to composition. One thing that I'm not doing right now is checking heavily for parallel fifths. And there is this kind of neat little function in a lot of notation software where it has a parallel fifth finder. And it's really useful to run that. That's probably in here. I'm not, let's just find that here. No. Oh, it's in the proofreading area. Check for parallel fifths. There we go. Okay. So let's just take a look. So parallel fifths and parallel octaves, and also hidden fifths and hidden octaves. These are often discouraged in four-part writing and counterpoint because it has this sound of going from four-part to a smaller number of parts. And less important, again, in the type of thing I'm doing here, I did an experiment with this. I wrote a song that I have never published. It's called the Sistina of Life. We've never finished it. I would need a rather accomplished female vocalist for it. And the lady I was working with, Deirdre, is on the East Coast now studying marine biology. So I probably am not going to find, I don't know of any operatic sopranos or altos here in my small town, Eastern Washington. There could be some great singers out here. But one of the interesting things on that song is it helped to solidify how I put other instruments into my music. So you have your standard rock ensemble, guitars, bass, drums, sometimes a vocalist. And then you often will have some sort of a synth player or some sort of pad element or instrument. And usually going to be played by a keyboard player, but excuse me, could be a choir. It could be horns. There are a lot of things that could act in this capacity. And even if you're using just a keyboard player, they're often going to be using some sort of a synth sound or some sort of a simulated string sound. And so I've gone through and analyzed a ton of music over the years, which is just a very strong part of any music education. And one of the things I found in a lot of my very favorite bands is they don't tend to do four-part writing. They'll write kind of a simplified thing. And I don't mean this as a put down by any means, because this is not bad that they're doing this. It works very well for their music. But in that, I looked at that and I'm like, I wonder how my music would sound if I went more on the kind of, four-part writing guidelines. And so I had composed this whole song. It's about 17 minutes long. And then I went through and I did my orchestration. I wrote the whole string section, and I've got some brass and winds in there as well. I did some piano and harpsichord. And so then I went through on all of the orchestral instruments, and I checked for parallel fifths, parallel octaves. And if I recall correctly, there were 235 of them over the course of 17 minutes. And I went through and I did a save as, because, again, it was kind of that thing I talked about earlier where it's easy to get emotionally attached to it. And what I really wanted to happen was I would go through and I would fix all these parallels, these parallel fifths, parallel octaves, and it wouldn't make that much of a difference. And I really wanted that to be the case. So I went through, I did my save as, and in my new file, I went through and I fixed, I want to say all but like 12 of them. I got it down from 235 to 12, and it sounded a lot better. It really did. And it's like, these rules, air quote rules that we use for composition, they're not rules, they're guidelines. And the guidelines come from studying music of other composers and say, well, when Palestrina did this, why did it sound so good? When Paganini did this other thing, why did that sound so good? When Prokofiev does these weird things with his piano compositions, why does that work? Why are we so drawn to the music of Eric Satie, for example? It's just lovely music, piano music. And it was okay, why did they use these notes in these places? And when we look at that, we can kind of codify what they did and say, well, yeah, okay, that's why it worked. So let's see how I did on parallel fifths here. I've got a few. Got some parallel fifths, got some parallel octaves. 9 of them. See? Now, here, one thing I will say is in a case like this, now I haven't corrected this area yet. A lot of composers, and this is a personal choice, will say parallel fifths are fine here. Because in this case, I've got a separation by a rest, so they don't count. So when I'm using these rests, they won't worry about them. And so the parallel fifths, parallel octaves, in those cases, that works out. So where's my parallel octave here? So I've got, what do we got here? Okay, we've got an F note. We've got an F note here, so that is an octave. And then we're moving to a G. That's a B. That's an E. I'm not actually finding my parallel fifth in this case. My parallel octave, I should say. So here we've got a D, G, E, F. So the F's are octaves. I'm not sure where this one's actually at. And it's interesting. It'll give you the thing and say parallel fifths here, but it doesn't actually point to exactly where they're at. Okay, F to G. Those are F's. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so I've got an octave here. I'm totally seeing it now. Okay, there's my F. There's my G. Yes. Okay, so, and again, I've got quite a bit, I've got quite a bit of freedom on this one because this doesn't have to be any particular chord. So I've got an E, a B, an F. What if I move this to, so in this case, B, D, F, B, D, E, F, that would be like a, that might work. That actually does work better. Yes. See, and that's the thing. You don't want it to be, oh yeah, these guys, they totally got it right and we all got it wrong. No, they really did get it right. This, I'll bet, is my parallel fifth right here. On just so we've got a B to a G. Wait, that's not a fifth, is it? B, C. So that's a sixth. So where's my fifth? So these would be parallel six. Those are fine. A to F, A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D, E, F. That is six. Okay. So those are six. So here we got B. Here we've got another G. Got an E to a B. So there's a fifth. And then there it is. And we've got a D to an A. So there's my fifth. Wow. Yeah. See, even if I was looking for that, I wouldn't have found it. And I was just talking with one of my students, might have been Michael. There's a book that I have studied heavily from called Walter Piston's Harmony. It's an older college textbook, still very highly rated. And I have a couple different editions of it that I've picked up over the years. And in the fourth edition, there's a little exercise kind of, illustrating some very basic concepts. And it's about 4-part writing. And in the exercises questions at the end of the chapter, it says, did you notice the voice crossing on exercise blah, blah, blah? And I, of course, had not. And then it points out this mistake was in the first 3 editions of the book. We've left it in this edition just to illustrate how easy it is to miss it. Because these are professionals. This book had been, edited and sussed out, and they still missed it. And, and in that case, it was a crossing of voices, which is something that we generally try to avoid. Yeah. So here, let's see, we ended up going to a D. So we've got an A here and a D here. We have a D note here. So I've got a repeat of my D. So in this case, I think I'm going to move my D up to an E, which makes this a whole note. I'm going to cross that over here. So now we've got this holding all the way across, and the D is a 9. And that gets rid of my parallel fifths. Aha! Works better. Love it. This is cool. So here I haven't really started working on this section, so these ones don't really count yet, but it's good to know that they're there because I'm going to get rid of those. And like I said, these came from largely, I think, the fact that I wouldn't have looked at those anyway. I wouldn't have given as much credence to those because they had the rests in them in the original space, which is why I didn't even include this in the parallel fifth finder because I'm not as concerned about it there. But here, I'm definitely going to want to rip those out of there and punch them in the face. Hard. Because I'm just so tough like that, So here, now this, if I recall correctly, we ended up building off of a G. So we got G, D, and E, and a B. So G, B, D, and E. Let's turn this one into a C chord here. C, E, G. I could leave the G there. C. Go to G here. And here we'll move. I'll just take that to a C as well. And see there again, that's kind of not a big jump, but it's a bigger jump. And we can really kind of handle that in the bass. And then we have a B chord. So this is where, I was talking about, if you go from one letter to its adjacent letter, you don't have any common notes. So I do want to see now if I can take this and somehow hold a note across. Now I could hold the E across. Let's try that. We'll take the E there. So now I'm going to have to change some things around. Oh, C there still works. We've got a G, C, E, G, C, C. So yeah, that works. Oh yeah, okay, that works even better because I had taken my E away here, so I actually had just C and G. So this actually works better. Now we'll go to a B chord. So now I want to see if I can kind of force something to work by holding it across here. And this we often think of as an anticipation or a suspension. So I'm going to a B chord, and in this case I'm going to be thinking more of a suspension is, and some people would argue that it's only a true suspension if it's the 4 or whatever, but this is kind of a different way of thinking of a suspension is I'm going to hold one of these notes across. So I'm going to suspend a note from the previous chord into my next chord. So B, D, F sharp are the notes that I need. If I move this G up here, I could turn this into a half note. B, D, F sharp, G, what we're going to end up here would be a B minor flat 6 chord. And those are very, flat 6 chords are very, very metal sounding. And so we're going to end up with a B minor flat 6. And I have an A note here, so let's move this. I don't necessarily want to go all the way up to the B in this case. But, I probably do need to push my violins up a little more. I tend to go for lower ranges. And that's another thing I feel like I'm learning from all the production stuff that I've been working on with album 65 is don't be afraid to push those pads up into a higher register. So if I go with the B there, holding the G across, so I'll need a D. I could put a D note here. That gives us a nice little line here. Of course, this may change. F sharp, B. So now I've got B, B, F sharp. Well, if I put this on the D note, let's listen to this. Yeah, this chord is totally not working for me, so that's going to change around a bunch. But oh, that's because they're all freaking A notes. Yeah. So this, and I don't know how well these sounds come across the internet. Listen to how you hear chords in the measure that's blue. And then as soon as it goes to that next measure, measure 294, I don't know if you can see the little 294 up here. It's probably it's kind of hard for me to see. But at this measure, it just, all of a sudden, it just sounds like just this one thing. So you hear the independence of notes here. And then it's just one homogenized, because they're all A notes all of a sudden. And that's a similar kind of thing. If I were to take, for example, maybe I take 2 of these notes and move them to be an E note. Now we're going to have an A and an E. And that's a fifth. That's a power chord. So we're still going to have a much smaller sounding thing at that point. And so that's the ensmallerizing of voices with how that, yeah, that's the parallel fifth concept and all of that. It's not that great. So this is better now, I think. I like that. That line works. I'm digging that. Okay, so we have A to F here. So this, yeah, we haven't actually, this is new information here. Now there again, I could kind of force this to be a different chord here. Basically anything that would have an A as a primary. I mean, I could use even the A as an extension. So hypothetically, I could go to any chord here. But if we think about chord tones, your 1, 3, 5 concept that we talked about earlier, that's often a good place to start. So if I put this together as an A, C, E, so I can put an E here, leave the A there. I like that A. Maybe move this one down to an E. And I'm going to leave this on an A for now. Even though I've got that block chord there, we're going to see that this does sound pretty good. And if I play that with the rest of the rock ensemble. But this could be a good place to think, okay, well, what else does have an A in it? So an A would be the one of an A minor chord. The notes are A, C, and E. It would be, and these are chords that fit in the key that I'm using. It would be the 3 of an F major chord, F, A, C. And it would be the 5 of a D minor chord, D, F, and A. And I'm kind of thinking that a D chord might just work here. I could cross that one over. I could repeat the D there, leave that A, move this to be an F. Here. That I kind of do like. As I mentioned earlier, I often don't like necessarily holding my top note. I have a tendency to prefer that on my lower voices, but I feel like it works in this case. And then here we have an F. And now, interestingly, considering that this is an F, let me just try something here. Thank you for cooperating and letting me try this. If I make this into an F note, I could possibly just use an F note all the way across this entire measure. And sometimes going real simple like that really works well. So now my notes would be F, A, C. Maybe move this up to my F. And particularly getting to a little higher note here could be good because I'm moving to a new section in this case. And getting to that new section, kind of building up to that, may work really well. And also I have a bit of an idea for what's going to happen in this measure here. So we'll see if this does anything for us. So we move to an F. We still have the A that I wanted to leave there. We have an F note here. Move this one to a C note. And now we would have an F chord, and I could, hypothetically, go right there. And I don't think, oh wait, that's a G note. That's why I'm not liking that one. Go to the F note there. So F, F, A, C, okay. I think I like the D chord better in that case. So I'm just going to Control Z out of this. Until I get back to that. So I got my D, make sure I'm at the right spot. F, D, F, D, D, A. Okay, yeah. I like that better. So I do feel like maybe hold this across for the A. And now on this particular move, where I'm moving from a D to an F, I'm moving by a fifth. So there should be one note that is inherently the same between the chords. And that was that A note. So that was a real easy choice for a note to hold over. And so we leave my F there. F, I've got an A, move this to a C. That's a D. I would, oh yeah, no, F, 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 A, C, that could work. And what I think I want to do here is remove those and those and these. Now this is where I'm getting kind of rhythmic here with how I've got a rhythmic idea for what I want to happen. it's going to stand in slight contrast to the bass, and then this chord is just going to drone over it. And these will, the way I set things up when I transfer all this into the chord, because I don't have an actual orchestra I can go and have, do recordings, which would be, lots of fun, but that's leagues away from where I'm at. So I have some very good synth, I shouldn't say synth, but some orchestral samples. And I'm very fortunate in that I am associated with a couple of different private studios. And because of that, I have access to some tools, particularly some of the sample libraries that I would not be able to afford. Some of the sample libraries out there are like stupid expensive, like thousands upon thousands of dollars expensive. And so fortunately, I don't think the string sections that I'm using are that expensive. But I've also, again, I've been very fortunate with the studios that I'm associated with to have tried out some of the just crazy high-end stuff. And some of it is not really the best thing going. It's kind of unfortunate. But so what I'm going to do here, so we've got a G chord. We've got G going in the bass. We've got G going on the cello and viola. And I'm going to leave all that. So that is going to be my repeated note. And when I transfer all of this in and put it on my better samples, this is going to be a really nice staccato sound here. And there's even a possibility that I'm going to end up jamming this into being just an eighth note for the chord instead of the full thing. I'm going to experiment with that. I don't know if I want the drone chord or if I want this to really stand. So I've got that. So I'm going to go to so we've got G, B, D. I'll take this to the D note, this to the B note. Now what I want to do is I want to, and my initial thought was that this was going to go to the inside as a neighbor note, but then I would be playing the exact same note, which would not be a terrible move here. But I'm going to try to move these to the outsides. So I'm going to do a neighbor note each way. Add in the rest of the strings. Now that actually, so we're going from a D to an E, we're going from a B to an A. The A and the E. This is just sounding kind of major-esque to me, which I don't really want. And if I do this, I'm going to have that half-step movement. That's even though I've got the repeated tone there. Now I could experiment with taking this down here. No, in this case, I'm going to take the unison on this. And so what we ultimately have is just two C notes and two G notes. So just C and G. So basically you've got a power chord on the and of one. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn this into a little more of a line going up. Yeah, I like that. And actually, I might take these down here. I think I like that better. So I have, I'm repeating this note, and then this is moving up by, so this would be like called stepwise motion. I'm moving up one position. So basically, if you go from a line to the adjacent space, or vice versa, a space to the adjacent line, that would be moving by step. And if you go from a space to a space or further, or a line to a line or further, then that would be movement by skip. This is also known more technically as conjunct and disjunct motion. And so when I was here, now we have all conjunct motion. Everything is moving stepwise. And in this case, I feel like throwing just that one little bit of conjunct motion in there it makes this note kind of pop a little harder on beat 1. So I'm going to roll with that. And then here, the last little bit of experimentation that I want to do on this one is sometimes it can be really cool to just have your strings kind of take over. So I want to experiment with taking all of this, even the drums here, turn into an 8th note, so all of the rest of this just goes tacit. That is what I want to do. I'm gonna change this back, and I'm gonna try leaving the drums in place. The drums are good. I'm just gonna take this, and instead of being a kick, I'm gonna put that onto a tom. And that works nicely too, because I've taken this beat out of here, and it'll be nice and prominent there. Yes, once I move that to a tom, that is much better. Very cool. And drum notation, I don't think I've ever done drum notation online. It's a little wonky because you're not working with notes. It doesn't matter that this is an E note, or rather it should be an F note, and then that's an A note, and that doesn't mean anything. The standard for drums is that this line here and one down from it are kick drums, and particularly for drummers who use like a double kick, sometimes you might write in which kick to hit, and then this is a snare drum, and then in between those you have toms. You also have tom drums up here, and then these up above are cymbals. And so writing drum notation is very, very different than writing any other kind of standard instrumentation, guitars, pianos, string sections, flutes, or whatever. It's a very different kind of a process. But that's what we're looking at there. When I look at the drum staff, I don't think in letters anymore. I just kind of have a visual of what I have there. And it's also notable that drum notation is less standardized than most other notation, because drums are one of the least standard instruments available. It's like if you ask the question, how many tom drums are on a drum kit? Well, there's no standard answer for that. A lot of jazz drummers will have one rack tom and one floor tom, snare kick, and a few cymbals. You look at a drum kit from Neil Peart of Rush, and there might be 15 of them. And I've seen drums with rack toms with 4, 5, 7. It's all over the place. And ditto for the cymbals. How many cymbals does a drum kit have? Depends on the drum kit. Depends on what the drummer wants. Depends on what's necessary for that. So drums are less standard, and I'm using this. You can see these notes are blue and green, and that would be voice 2 is green, voice 1 is blue. And even for how we create these, it is not uncommon for some persons to put the snare drum on voice 2. I usually put the snare drum on voice. I don't even know why I've got. Oh, yeah. So here, yeah. See, I switched this around for clarity. So yeah, normally my snare drum goes in voice 1. Sometimes you got to put it in voice 2 because this is another cymbal. Because you got to find different places to put all your cymbals in. So I've got a drum kit built up pretty well in here that I didn't really change very much on it. And it worked out well. So yeah, drums are a very different type of notation and composition. It was also very interesting for me, probably once I got up around, I don't know, my 40th album or so. Because I had written all my drums in sheet music, I realized that I had created for myself, without even trying to, a massive library of drum licks. Because I'd gone through on those early albums and just punched in every single note. And then I realized, hey, I can look through my old stuff and reuse some of my ideas. Because you end up recreating similar ideas anyway. You know, like something like this where you have kick on 1, snare on 3, kick on 1, snare on 3, kick on 1, snare on 3. That's really, really common. And in other areas, you'll have something more like kick on 1, snare on 2, kick on 3, snare on 4. Again, very common. And then there are a variety of ways that you fill in different drum beats here. But again, a lot, you know, you don't want to get completely out of this world with your drum patterns unless you are specifically trying to do something very weird. You often want your drums to sound like something that an actual drummer would play. And when you're programming drums, it's, and I've heard bands make this mistake where they program the drums to where they no longer sound like something a person would do. And sometimes that effect can be very good. You know, if you're writing, for example, for a film score and you know that no real orchestra is ever going to play your work because you're not, you know, Hans Zimmer or Danny Elfman, then you might put something in there that can't actually be played on a real violin, but it can be played on a synth violin. So, you know, it depends on where you want to take your liberties. But I definitely heard some drum programming get to what I felt was an unnecessarily unnatural sounding state. And I try to make this something that not just any old drummer could play, but definitely if you have a good drummer, they would be able to play all of the patterns I've got in here. There's nothing unplayable. I would not be able to play them, but I'm not a drummer. A good drummer would be able to do this and at the speeds that I've created it. So that's kind of where I try to go with it. So yeah, I feel like I've made some decent little changes here to our intro section. I definitely like this last measure of the intro. And I feel like that, because this is a really big change in the pacing of the music. Because this is all of these 16th notes, and then I go down to this kind of half-tempo gallop. And so we're going, and then we're going. And I feel like this transition, I like the transition from one to the other. I'm gonna play through this again. I'm gonna play the guitar part and let Sibelius play the other part. And I'm gonna play through just, you know, a page and a half or so here, just kind of see how this sounds. I'm gonna smallerize that and simultaneously embigorize my page. I'm going to save this file. Okay, let's see how this sounds. This should be fun. Like that. This was a good time. I think I'm going to call that a stream. I hope that anyone out there watching at least enjoyed this, and maybe if there are any musicians out there, you might have gotten a little bit out of it that could help with ideas or processes for your own compositions or productions or whatever it is that you may have going on. Because that's kind of what this is all about. It's just about doing music stuff and having a good time with it. So again, if you are new to what I do, I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. Check out themadpoet.net. It is basically a repository of everything I've got. All 64 of my albums that I've released so far are available for streaming on there. They're all available for free, and there are links to most of my other stuff. And Therese says she did get some stuff out of this, so that's awesome. Thanks for watching. It helps with art in general. That's a great compliment. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So yes, check out my website. And this is a very non-standard type of a stream for me, though I do really enjoy composition streams. Most of what I do is more concert-based, and a very good time with the skulls and the nooses and especially the lights and the fog and the music and it's a good time. Every Friday at 8 o'clock p.m. in the Pacific time zone, I do a concert stream, and I hope you can stop in for that. But wherever you are, whatever you do, I hope you're having a good time with it. I'm out of here, and I will see you